Hi folks, in this video I'm going to go over the first lab. So the labs are a little different from the worksheets that we've been working on so far in that this is set up to be a sort of a real life assignment. You're going to pull down some genuine data, try to interpret it, look for a story relevant to this area, and the biggest challenge here is really learning how to interview the data and to sort of interrogate it for the questions you want to answer. To look at these numbers, think about what you'd ask it if it was a source, and then figure out how to figure out the answer. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen now. If I can figure out how. Okay. Oh, and wait. And here's the rubric for the assignment. You can look at that on your own, I suppose. So the lab assignment is to pretend you're a reporter assigned to cover Miami University on a slow news day. And so you're going to look at the Clery Act data and look for a story relevant to Miami. And so we've done some reading about the Clery Act, the two articles in the reading for this week. And that's mostly about the shortfalls of this data, and particularly in describing crimes, and particularly in describing sexual assaults, which is a very poorly reported crime, as opposed to, like murders, which is a very well-reported crime. Interestingly, what we are going to be looking at is the drug crimes, which are also very poorly reported. But well, hey, let me jump into the data a little faster. Okay, so we're going to be looking at Clery data. You are going to have to write a story as though you're a Miami University focused reporter or a reporter in this area. I'm looking for about 250 words in each paragraph here. You really should be sort of asking questions of the data and interrogating it to draw a different little point. And yeah, I'm looking for, sort of a factual reported couple of good paragraphs about what's going on or what has been going on. Comparing Miami to the nation, maybe looking at Miami over time. What I'm not looking for in this assignment is, and when I say that in the description too, there are a lot of weaknesses to this data, to Clery data generally. There's a lot to talk about in this data, and that's why I assigned you those readings about it. But the story here isn't really the place. So in this story, really, I'm just looking for analysis and sort of reporting from this data set, and not here for sort of an extended discussion of the shortfalls of this reporting. Although what you write kind of should be cognizant of those issues. So enough on that. Let me move on and show you what you're going to be working with. So here we go. I'm going to start by Googling Clery data download. And it takes you to this page. Now, this is a really complicated data set with data in a bunch of different categories, as we'll see. We are going to download custom data, but you might want to look at these other options. You can just pull out one school here. Yeah, custom data download is how we're going to approach this. Let's look at the whole USA, right? Country. Let's only include campuses with on-campus student housing facilities. Hey, before I go any further, actually, I've stepped too far already. I think we are going to not look at crimes committed and reported through Clery, but maybe look at disciplinary offenses. And I'll explain that in a minute when we get there. But So I'm just going to look at on-campus disciplinary offenses this time around. And because I want to look at only on-campus disciplinary offenses, it makes sense only to include campuses with only to include campuses with on-campus student housing. So Clery collects data for 3 different kinds of on-campus offenses: drinking, alcohol, or I'm sorry, drinking, drugs, and gun possession. And gun possession is very thin. There's not a lot of gun possession. So there's not really much to write about when there's just a case every couple of years. And so I thought for this assignment, we would focus on on-campus offenses. And so those will mostly be drinking and drugs. And one of the things that I like about focusing on these is, rather than arrests, we're talking about cases where a student was actually disciplined. So, it is actually measuring a kind of activity by Miami University, how many people have been disciplined. And one thing that I hope is that this data will be relatively accurate, because, since this is all an internal process to Miami, the dean of students is doing the disciplining, hopefully they're reporting the number of people disciplined correctly, each year. So, but because we're looking at on-campus discipline, I think we'll only look at places with student housing facilities. Now we're looking at all 50 states. Institution sector. Well, I want to look at Miami's on-campus discipline compared to other similar schools. Miami is a public 4-year and above. We're kind of like a private school, though, in a lot of respects, So let's also look at private 4-year and above. Do we want to include private for-profit schools? Well, honestly, I don't know how many 4-year and above private schools there are with dorms. I think we might as well include it. Rather, better to have more than less. Now, is it fair to compare Miami with 2-year schools, community colleges? Not so much, right? So I'm going to leave these out. So apparently we have found 1,800 institutions with about 2,100 campuses. And now this is including international campuses too. Let's go back. And we're only including campus country. Let's just keep US campuses. This will get rid of our Luxembourg branch here. Yeah, there's Miami, Luxembourg. All right, so let's just look at US campuses. All right, institution enrollment. Let's see. I looked up Miami, and Miami has about 19,000, almost 20,000 students. It rounds to 20. And so the breaks here between 15 and 19, between 20 and 29. Well, we are right on the cusp of these two groups. So let's grab them both. And I'm going to jot down for my notes when because I'm going to have to write something about this. And when I write about this, I am going to have to explain what I did a little bit. So we will remember that we're looking at schools between 15,000 and 20 and 30,000 students. We'll remember that it's 4-year public and private universities. And we'll remember that it's only US campuses and only campuses with on-campus student housing. We'll look at the instructional program too. Yeah, I don't think we care. All right. So now we're down to 133 institutions with 192 campuses. And keep in mind, different universities might handle campuses different ways. Ball State or Baylor, for example, has a main and then a campus in New York. I don't know. Okay, continue with all found. select all years. And then I said earlier that I thought it's going to be best to focus on disciplinary actions here. But I want you to see all that we have. So, you know, as well as disciplinary actions, we can look at criminal offenses on and off campus. Look at this. This is a range since 2001. So this is some nice longitudinal data. Most recent year is not that recent. 2018 is the most recent year that they have because there's like a 1-year lag between collection and posting. That said, you can get these numbers, I believe, for 2019 directly from the university, should you desire. So when we look through these categories, notice that they are divided by geography, on campus, non-campus, reported by local and state police. Something confusing to remember here is that there's also some overlap between these geographical categories. So obviously, something that is on campus will also be reported in the on-campus student housing facilities. Something to keep in mind. Hate crimes, non-campus, public property, and reported by state police. As you'll know from the readings, these are places where reports do fall through the cracks when it's not on campus, whether or not it has to be reported. Okay. VAWA, that's Violence Against Women Act. And so here's the reporting of on campus, again, in dormitories specifically, and then these areas of around campus, including if it shows up in Oxford police reports. Arrests. And keep in mind when you're working with cops around here, Miami and Oxford are different departments. Finally, the ones that we are going to play with, disciplinary actions. And we are going to get disciplinary actions on campus. So if these are downloaded as separate spreadsheets in a zipped file. So it's not going to put all the data in the same, in the same spreadsheet anyway. And that's the case for all of these. These are all downloaded as separate files. And on-campus student housing facilities would be very similar to on-campus numerically, right? But on-campus will also catch the random person who gets in trouble in Armstrong or whatever instead of their dorm. All right. Oh, fire, unfounded crimes. Okay, we're now going to download it. I'm waiting. There's a little corner. It's going to prepare. Well, you know what? I'm just going to jump ahead because I've already downloaded a copy. And what we get is going to look a lot like this. Make this really big. So the result will be this spreadsheet. And looking across the top, institution name, survey year, campus ID. I'm not sure exactly what campus ID relates to. I looked it up in the data dictionary and I tried to look it up in the data dictionary and I didn't find it. I think it relates to the number of campuses each university has. But it might be worth some more research to see if there's something valuable we can use in there. Campus name, institution size. Now this is the population of the institution, right? You might want, you probably will want to use this in order to compare the frequency of different types of violations between universities of different size. So one of the questions you're going to want to ask is, how does Miami compare to other schools in punishing kids for drinking, say? And you can run a number that in a given year, Miami University punishes 1 in 35 students for drinking. And that's approximate. So I'd like to see a number like that in your story. And then if you want to compare Miami to other schools like Ohio State University, you can say Miami punishes 1 in 35 students for drinking in a given year, while Ohio State punishes 1 in 29 students. Okay, if you just compare the totals, Ohio State will always win everything, because much like New York, if you just compare the totals on cities, Ohio State has so many more students that comparing the totals doesn't really get a meaningful comparison between universities. All right, so back to this. Institution name, institution size, the number of weapons violations. Weapons, these are very rare and so probably not worth writing about. There's not a lot of interesting stuff in there, and there's only 1 every couple of years. Unless you see great changes, then there's something interesting. Drug law violations and liquor law violations. So let's just take a quick look. So notice that this data is set up differently. This is more of a database setup, where it is 1 piece of data, 1 year on each row. And so I'll put on my filters. Oh, I guess I already were on. So 1 year on each row, so you can select out rows like this. And then so if we look at Miami, Miami should appear like, what, 10 times in here, 1 time for each data year. I want to do it this way. So here's Miami by year. Ah, look at that. That's some growth, isn't it? This is the year-over-year drug law violations. On campus, I will give you a hint. These are, here's a good hint. Miami, you know all those no smoking, no cigarette smoking signs? These are not for cigarette smoking. Miami has never enforced Miami cops have never enforced the cigarette smoking on campus thing. And the numbers of violations for that has been very, very non-existently low. They just don't bother with it. These are not cigarette smoking. No, they wouldn't be anyway. It does say drug law. So okay. And then liquor law violations year over year. High, but not. So you can see a little change here. Let's set up a pivot table. So I'm just setting a pivot table to sort of play with this a little bit. I'm going to put the survey year in the filter. And let's put the Oh, I don't want campus name. Well, I guess I could. Yeah, I was going to do institution name, but maybe campus name is the way to go. You know what? I'm doing this the hard way. For what I was thinking about doing, it'd just be easier to do it on this main sheet here. I was just going to see where Miami was. I'm going to start by, you know what? I'm going to do a rate just to start this thing. You know, maybe I should just quit and let you guys play with it on your own from here. Before I go any further, I'll do a rate though, or before I sign out. Let's do 1 in how many so that is a question that you can ask the data. Oh no, it is population on top. You know, I was going to do pivot tables, but you don't really need to use pivot tables on this at all. So let's celebrate on that. All right. All right, so notice there's some junk here. Bright Divinity School with 342 liquor law violations and no students. So these are all errors where the universities apparently failed to report population size for a particular year. Let's just look at the most recent year. Man, Bright Divinity School has a problem, doesn't it? They do have a problem if they have 750 liquor violations for only 200 students. All right, I do not know what's going on with that. That's who's this? Michigan State? They had more liquor law violations than students? Maybe a typo in the data, eh? Maybe Michigan State does not have 777 students in 2018. So, all right. With those things in mind, how's Miami stack up here? Let's find Miami. (2018). All right, Miami punished about 1 in 60 students for drinking. Where's that put us relative to other schools? Well, you know, we could do a median on this column. A median would be the logical way to do it, you know, to see what the sort of middle number is. And that would throw away the junk about the people with, you know, this junk here. And then a median would also throw away, oops, I'm going down to the bottom, but I'm sure there's junk down on the bottom too. Yeah. So yeah, a median would also sort of help you eliminate this garbage here. What is this garbage here? This is schools that reported no violations at all. Huh. These are not places that look like they have a lot similar with Miami, are they? Well, Ashland University, Assumption College, I don't know. What are these? These are schools that reported no liquor violations. And some schools probably report no liquor violations because, you know, it's just a matter of policy. They're not concerned with it. They don't have their RAs enforce it. That's what it was like when I was in college anyway. Back in the day, there were a lot of differences between places, and I think there still are. Okay, so I wonder what I wonder if Miami's in the middle. I'm just going to do a quick, well, you can do it yourself. All right, I'm going to sign out here because I'm getting lost in this data myself. I find this so interesting to look at. There are a couple of different ways you can look at this, of course. The data goes back to 2001, so you can look at how Miami has changed over the years. That's a good question to ask. You can ask, how does Miami stand next to most schools like Miami? And so with this download, I got schools between 15,000 and 30,000 for a year with on campus, with dorms on campus. And I forget the number that it came out. It wasn't as high a number of schools as you might think from the initial number of schools out there. So you might want to talk about how does Miami compare to other schools nationally by looking at a sort of, you know, figure like the one in number of students cited. You might also, and this would require you doing a separate download, but it's not a big deal. You might also just pull down Ohio schools. And then after having a paragraph about how Miami looks next to the nation, you could have a paragraph about how Miami looks next to the other four-year public schools in Ohio's system. Now that would just take another download, but again, that's not a big deal. And the reason you have to do it that way is because it doesn't include state on this spreadsheet we just got, which is too bad. Okay, please shoot me an email if you have any questions. I'll be happy to go over it with you further. All right, see you later.